floor is yours, sir.
All right, so when I was a younger kid, I used to get nervous about going to new places and trying new things. I remember not feeling that way for my first Cub Scout meeting 11 years ago. I remember my dad had somehow gotten involved as a den leader, and I knew everything would be all right. I remember entering the church and making new friends with the 7 to 10 other boys who were in my den. We all had a blast from that point on, camping, Pinewood Derby car racing, and selling popcorn. Now I remember when I entered Boy Scouts during the 5th grade. I felt so old and big. Now I feel that the new Scouts are so small and young. I have learned that I went from a young Scout trying to absorb as much knowledge as possible to an older Scout that spends more time teaching the younger Scouts and leading them. I never remember a truly dull moment in my Scouting career. Of course, there are things like the citizenship merit badges, which are not the most exciting to learn. And there was the time on a canoe trip 2 years ago when we had to paddle through flat water on a river with our canoes laden with trash we collected for 7 miles. But those were all experiences that were important and memorable, as boring and as rough as they were. So whether it be fly fishing on the Jackson River, spending the weekend on a retired battleship, backpacking 50 miles, jumping off a 50-foot cliff into the water, or accidentally kicking open a yellow jacket's nest in the middle of a trail, Scouting has led me to all these great experiences. Some of my fondest experiences come from a 50-mile backpacking trip we do every summer called High Knoll. I can't think of High Knoll without thinking about my great philosophical conversations with Matthew Withers. We would have these conversations for miles and miles on end, I kid you not. During these conversations, I would laugh my heart out and learn tons. I believe our highlight of our thoughts came from 3 years ago when we successfully predicted the fame of Sherman Lee, who's now our mayor. I also think about the fun I've had with Stuart Van Meter, in which Stuart and I would talk in various accents for random things at hours at a time. I'll never know what Sie Schnitzel is, but I know Stuart loves it. I also think about all the younger Scouts I've had a blast learning and talking to. Ryan Straub, where's Ryan, is one of my favorite conversationalists in the troop. Our conversations tend to revolve around the United States Naval Academy, where we both love to go to school, football, hunting, and of course, Ryan's sister. Now, my Eagle Project has taught me so much about leadership. The philosophy that I've learned to follow is leadership by example. Anybody can ask Charles Meidlinger, where's Charles? Anybody can ask Charles Meidlinger how this works. This past year we were on a backpacking trip, and I was talking with Charles, and he told me he did a band elective in a school, which was for a rock band, where he was the singer. I asked him to sing me a song, but he didn't want to. To encourage him, I sang every song I knew for 2 hours straight, not stopping. By the end of the 2 hours, everyone was singing, and we all got Charles to finally sing. He sounded great. I don't know what he was afraid of. Along with leadership, the Eagle Scout teaches one how to accomplish a project. I had to plan a project, raise a sufficient amount of money for that project, build that project, create a final write-up to describe the whole process. This whole time, I had to lead people to help me because an Eagle Scout project is far too much work for one person to accomplish. So for my project, I worked at the Isaac Walton League. The Isaac Walton League is basically a nature preserve in Roanoke County. It's 200 acres. There are different chapters all around the country, but in Roanoke County, there's 200 acres, and it's set aside for the preservation of the environment. On the Isaac Walton League, there's a trail. I believe it's 2 to 3 miles. In one section of the trail, there's a giant, basically a granite boulder outcropping that people have much difficulty, especially older people, getting over. You have to scramble it and get on all fours and climb over it. So what I did is I built a bridge starting with a spiral staircase going up to one platform, which then goes to stairs to another platform to the top of the outcropping, and now nobody else has issues going across the boulder outcropping. In the end, scouting is an invaluable opportunity, and I encourage everyone to take advantage of it. Statistics show that all scouts end up better off in life than non-scouts, and I wholeheartedly agree with this, just by looking at the young boys in our troop who are transforming into respectable young men. Scouting has forever changed my life in a positive way, and I have no doubt that I can say the same for every scout here. Throughout scouting, you meet many invaluable mentors and make lifelong friends. I'd like to thank a few. Dick Hancock, for truly being a wealth of knowledge and teaching me probably most everything I know about scouting. It seems like there's not anything about scouting that you do not know. Boyce Cook, who helped me through my project and helped me build everything. Unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight due to an important trip to Tennessee. But he taught me all about engineering and all about building. Before my project, I couldn't build that well. Didn't really know that much about tools and building in general, but after my project, I feel totally confident anybody asking me to build anything. Dr. Marcus Speaker, for your leadership as a committee chair and making Troop 210 truly fantastic. I want to thank you. Steve Van Meter. When I think of Steve Van Meter in scouting, I think of a trip 6 years ago on the Jackson River where you hid behind a tree as me and my fellow scouts and Mr. Overton, who's sitting right next to you, we're all coming back to fishing and you jumped out from behind the tree. Mr. Overton jumped 5 feet off the trail and you scared us all so bad one kid had an asthma attack. Also, Stuart Van Meter for joining Cub Scouts with me in 2006 and always being there in my scouting career. I also want to thank Mac McGee for guilting my father into becoming a den master and starting all this craziness. I also want to thank Matthew Withers for being such an amazing positive role model for me and our many great high-level philosophical conversations. And of course, I want to thank my dad, Andrew Sherman, for always pushing me to become an Eagle Scout, supporting me through scouting, encouraging me to try new things, and stepping up and dedicating your valuable time, all the way from being a den leader in Cub Scouts to now being the troop master of Troop 210. So now I'll move on to the mentor pin. Before awarding my mentor pin, though, I'd like to thank 4 people who are very close to me who have supported me throughout scouting with love and encouragement. These roses are for my grandmothers and sisters. Thank you for your love. You got Mom?
About your grandmother?
Hell yeah. You're my grandmother.
You love you, sweet. So flustered. He can't tell us. He's flustered, yeah.
There you go, madam.
Oh, you're so sweet. Oh.
Thanks, Larry.
Oh, go on, Christy, take
Look
a
at
picture.
that. Papa didn't get one.
Well, this is just for girls. Oh,
His sisters.
nice. Is that what he said?
So right here, younger scouts really need to listen to me carefully. Your Eagle Project is not about your ability to build something. Anybody can build something. We have Google. It's easy. What the Eagle Committee wants you to prove is that you led people and you performed a service to your community. Leadership and service are the ultimate goals of Boy Scouting. As I thought about who I should award my mentor pin to, I thought about these 2 elements of the Eagle, leadership and service. And as I've thought about these 2 elements, I've had trouble with narrowing down my mentor to one person. Without a doubt, in terms of service, my mentor is Mr. Boyce Cook. Without Mr. Cook, I couldn't have completed my project. He taught me all about engineering, bridge building, and just building in general. He was a great guy. I learned so much from him. Unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight. So in terms of leadership, I want to award a mentor pin to someone else who couldn't be here tonight. Fortunately, though, there is someone here who can accept it on his behalf. Would the honor guard please escort my grandmother, Jackie Gorman, forward? My grandfather, Howard Gorman, passed away in April 2013. He was a 1969 graduate of the United States Naval Academy, where I hope to attend after graduation. He served 22 years in the Navy, and during that time, learned a lot about leadership. One of the dimensions of leadership, of which he was superb, was genuinely liking people, being concerned about them, encouraging them, and supporting them. I was lucky to see him do this many times before he passed, and I've tried to remember it as a senior patrol leader and during my Eagle Scout project. Because of what he taught me about being a leader, I'm awarding my mentor pin posthumously to my grandfather, Howard Paul Gorman, Jr.